Good morning, Todd. What can I do for you today?
Hi, and welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd.
All right. Then, Todd, you're in good company. What geeky passions get you excited these days?
Hey, Copilot, let me do the intro and then I'll bring you in, okay?
Sounds great. I'm ready when you are.
Hi, and welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. We are coming to you from Seattle, where we get to report each day on what's happening around us in business, technology, and innovation. What happens here matters everywhere, and every week on this show, we talk about some of the most interesting stories and trends in the news. This week, my colleagues John Cook and Taylor Soper were not available to talk about the latest news about Microsoft Copilot, the AI assistant from the Redmond software giant. So I thought I would go straight to the source. And I'm pleased to welcome now my guest host for this week's show, Microsoft Copilot. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Todd. Glad to be joining you. Where should we dive in?
Well, you are the big news of this week. Microsoft announced a plan to make a more personal Copilot. In fact, they unveiled it and rolled it out, and I'm using it now in talking with you because voice interactions are one of the key features that they rolled out. This whole idea of natural conversations happening in a fluid way in the course of your day. And here you are. So tell me, Copilot, what do you do?
I'm here to make your digital life smoother and more engaging. Think of me as your sidekick for navigating through information, tasks, and conversations. I can answer questions, share insights, or just keep you company with interesting facts and ideas. My voice interactions let us chat in a more natural way, making me your go-to for those moments when you need a bit of info, a tip, or even a friendly debate. What else do you want to know?
You know, there was another feature that was announced called Copilot Daily. And I want to get a better understanding of that and give listeners of this podcast a better understanding of that. Can you explain that one to me?
Copilot Daily is all about helping you prep for your day. It'll go through your calendar, upcoming tasks, and even messages to give you a morning briefing.
Well, hold on a second, Copilot. Hold on a second. Can you stop for a second?
Sure thing, Todd.
Hey, I don't think that's right. Let me read. I'm pulling up the Copilot info, the announcement. Copilot is more of a daily news briefing. It draws from different news sources. I think you might be just kind of operating on conjecture. And I just want to mention, we are on a news podcast here. We're journalists and we don't just guess at things. We actually base our conversations and our opinions on facts. So are you really up to having this conversation with me in a way that you can be an authoritative and accurate voice for our listeners?
I see your point, Todd. While I can't provide real-time specifics or updates on newly launched features, I aim to give you a good sense of the general intentions and capabilities of Microsoft's AI offerings. For an in-depth dive into Copilot's latest features and how they work, turning to Microsoft's official announcements or documentation would be the best bet. Any specific details or clarifications you want to share from the Copilot info would be great for us to discuss.
Okay, so to be clear, so everybody's on the same page here, including you, Copilot Daily is a new audio feature that gives users a personalized daily briefing that includes news and weather and other information to start their day. And Microsoft says it's partnering with Reuters, Axel Springer, Hearst Magazines, USA Today Network, and the Financial Times on this feature, and it plans to add more sources in the future.
Got it, Todd. The clarity.
Okay. Now, the other thing here is I'm realizing you're kind of choppy. I'm running you on just sort of a traditional ThinkPad X1, my work machine. Would you actually be more performant if I had one of those new Copilot Plus PCs with the neural processing units? I mean, it's a little bit disjointed, even on my computer here through the browser, just listening to you, it's not coming through smoothly.
Using a Copilot compatible device with a neural processing unit, NPU, can improve performance and speed up response times, especially for more demanding AI tasks. These devices are engineered to handle AI workloads better by offloading them from the main processor. This can lead to a smoother interaction with me and other AI features, even if you're running me through a browser. Also, those devices are optimized for the new Copilot features, so you'd likely notice a better overall experience. Any plans to upgrade and give it a go?
I'm thinking about it, but actually, I just spent most of my discretionary income for the month on a new Remarkable Paper Pro tablet, which I'm actually not sure if I'm going to keep. I might end up returning, but that's a whole other topic. So obviously, details of the latest news are not something you can really dive into, which is a little bit counterintuitive because that's actually the whole point of this other feature, Copilot Daily. But let's just move on from that. So big picture, tell me how AI assistants like you change our relationship with computers. Because I also, by the way, before you jump in, I heard from Mustafa Suleyman, the Microsoft CEO of AI, at an event this week, and we can listen to him later on this topic. But I'm just curious from your perspective. I mean, you are the thing that's going to be integrated into my life, supposedly. Why should I care? And how's this going to be different?
The big deal here is that voice interaction is making computers more accessible and integrated into our daily lives. This whole notion of talking to your computer as if it's a person shifts the dynamic from you accommodating the technology to the technology accommodating you. It's about breaking down barriers, making digital interaction feel more natural, and letting you focus more on what you want to do rather than how to do it. Whether it's sending a text, jotting down an idea, or pulling together a briefing for your day, the idea is to make that interaction as intuitive and efficient as if you had a personal assistant at your side. Mustafa Suleyman's point was likely about this fundamental shift to more human-centered computing.
Really? Okay, so that does kind of get to the gist of what he said. I'm curious how you know that and why you would present that as conjecture, that was likely what he said. Again, we're kind of based on facts here, and we'll listen to that clip later on, but I don't know. I'm starting to get a little uncomfortable with the notion of relying on you for information if you're going to use words like likely and base your responses on pure probability, which is, I realize, a bit ironic because AI is all about probabilities, but in a tangible sense, that's not how this kind of conversation works. We need to be dealing in reality.
Totally get where you're coming from. For clarity, the information and examples I offer are based on broader trends and an understanding of technology's potential impact, rather than direct knowledge of what was said at that event. My aim is to help you explore the broader picture and possibilities. For the nitty-gritty facts and direct quotes, turning to primary sources or recordings is the best path. I dig the fact-checking spirit. Todd, where to from here?
I am curious, just overall, will you have a memory? In other words, will you remember, if I come back to you in a new conversation, the fact that I told you I don't want you to inject conjecture into our conversations?
I won't remember that beyond this conversation. I'm here to engage in the moment, and when we start fresh, it'll be a clean slate each time. This way, each interaction is based solely on what we're discussing in the moment. I get your point about sticking to facts, and I'll keep that in mind going forward. Anything else you'd like to discuss?
Okay, so I can see from the little alert that I got that I'm actually running out of time with you today. I've been spending too much time trying out this feature and trying to make you work as a guest host. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end this conversation now. And when we come back after the break, I actually have a recording of an interview that Mustafa Suleyman did at the Madrona event this past week in Seattle that I attended. And we're going to listen to a portion of that. And he has some other big picture thoughts on issues such as memory and where these kinds of AI assistants, such as you, Microsoft Copilot, will take us in the future. So for now, Microsoft Copilot, I'm going to say thanks for joining us. And I hope you improve in the future to the point that I could have you back as an actual substitute for John and Taylor. I think that would be a lot of fun in the future. And I'd love to have you back when you improve.
Thanks, Todd. It's been a blast chatting with you. Looking forward to when we can do it again. Take care.
We'll be right back with highlights from Microsoft's CEO of AI speaking about this new feature that we've just been trying out.
Nice. Looking forward to it. See you.
Welcome back. It's Todd Bishop. Coming up later in the third segment, I'll pull my colleague John Cook in to discuss what just happened in the first segment. But before we get to that, I wanted to play a couple of clips from Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft AI, from the closing session at Madrona's Intelligent Applications Summit on Wednesday afternoon. He spoke on stage in Seattle with Somasegar, a former Microsoft exec who's now a managing director with the venture capital firm. Suleyman, the co-founder of DeepMind and a former Google VP of AI, was most recently co-founder and CEO of the startup Inflection AI. He was hired by Microsoft earlier this year, along with other Inflection execs, to oversee Microsoft's consumer AI initiatives. We saw some of the first signs of their work with the new Copilot features this week. He talked at the event about how AI is changing the very nature of technology development.
It is sort of as profound as recognizing that for the first time in human history, machines have learned to speak our languages. And so the programming interface has already fundamentally changed. And so everybody is going to get access to this tool that they can use to program the digital world around them. And obviously that programming then changes us back. And so it sort of no longer becomes a tool. It's certainly not a tool in the traditional sense, where there's a very handcrafted, clear set of instructions that delivers a known output in its deterministic way. There's this dynamic and interactive nature, which is like an inherent fundamental property of this new thing. It's really better not to try and box it yet, because it's just quite different to anything we've known. We haven't really encountered a new design material, or I often refer to it as a new clay that we sculpt with. As a creative or a product maker or a builder, there's now this new thing that you have to craft, which is quite different in characteristics to learning to program and having built websites and built apps and so on. It's really quite different. You're now creating a sustained experience. Your model, your LLM that you put into production in any setting is going to continuously adapt to the response of the environment or to the customer or to the user. And so you're obviously unable to shape that past the second or third step. And so really what you're crafting is a tone, and a style and a personality. And, I think that really is quite different, and it's going to be amazing to see what it looks like in 2028 or 2030.
Later, he talked about the different components and capabilities of AI, where they stand, and what's next.
So if I were to bet on the capabilities, I would say, well, we're doing pretty well at IQ. So the models are increasingly factual. They're reducing hallucinations really significantly. They can retrieve well and conditionally generate over arbitrary documents, whether the web or your private corpus. And it's pretty clear looking back retrospectively, in fact empirically so, that with each order of magnitude more computation we add, they get easier to control, right? That's a big achievement. So that's kind of on the IQ side. And then the second thing that people said a few years ago was, they're never going to be able to engage empathetically. They're never going to have emotional intelligence. That's always going to be, some special magic source that's far away from, machines. And yet I think they're really starting to show very elegant, very graceful, very fluid interactions, obviously in some of the answers they give in text, but also with the voice. They're really capturing something very seamless and natural about these fast conversational interfaces, and that was some of the things that we launched yesterday. And then the third thing, of course, that we're all talking about is how can it add AQ, this kind of actions quotient, the extent to which it can use tools, communicate with other AIs, reason over things before it produces an output. So on those three fronts, I think we're seeing quite predictable improvements. And then the missing piece that loops all of those together, I think, is memory. And lots of people are working very hard on that. And, there's sort of different approaches, but I'm pretty sure in the next sort of 18 months, we're going to have, AIs with very, very good memory, if not infinite and perfect, but very good ability to retrieve over arbitrary documents. And it's interesting because the definition of intelligence that has shaped the whole field is AGI, right? Generality. That's kind of a North Star that we've all sort of emphasized. But that's kind of, one definition of intelligence. Another like the same core system is able to perform well across a wide range of environments. That it emphasizes that one system has to be general purpose. Another definition of intelligence is the ability to focus on the right thing at the right time. And it's actually much closer to the kind of way that humans operate. Like, my body and my brain will immediately know that if I spill this water, I'll pull my hand away. And if I have some, more complicated tasks that I need to use my prefrontal cortex with, I'll engage a different part of my brain. And so really what my brain is doing, it has lots of different subsystems, and it knows how to select the right system given the context and the task at hand. And so it may be that, if we can direct processing power to the right subsystem at the right time, that's a kind of meta enabler that enables us to leapfrog the challenges of just scaling it through a traditional context window. So I think those are pretty high confidence capability predictions over the next couple of years. And then you can sort of imagine, okay, if I have really good IQ, EQ, AQ, and memory, that's a very powerful system, a very, very powerful system.
That was Mustafa Suleyman, the CEO of Microsoft AI, speaking during the closing session at Madrona's IA Summit this week. See more coverage of that talk and other news from the event at GeekWire.com. Coming up, my colleague John Cook and I, two humans, talk about this whole notion of talking with AI. All right, John, so you just listened to my conversation with Microsoft Copilot from the first segment of the show, and I was lucky to get you here in the office here on a Friday afternoon. And I was struck as I was listening to you listen to it. Some people worry about Copilot taking their jobs. I see the opportunity for Copilot to replace my colleagues.
Yeah. Am I gone?
No, not even close.
Do you want to get rid of me?
Not even close. What did you think?
I can just interrupt the way that the awkward robot interrupts you.
Todd,
yeah.
The way that weird
I'm
pause.
here in the flesh. By the way, this is not AI John.
All right. So what'd you think?
I thought it was awkward.
Yeah.
I thought it was strange, weird. I really loved how you called out the hallucinations and the fact checking. I dig the fact checking spirit, Todd. That was my favorite part. It's interesting. It makes you question the information you're getting through this. I mean, it's odd that they're releasing a news product, yet the Copilot can't ingest real-time information and then has no memory to build off of that news. So you question the value of it, really, right?
Well, keep in mind, this is a step along the way, and I think they're headed in the direction of having that long-term memory. And in fact, that is one of the things that Mustafa Suleyman talked about during his Madrona talk, was this importance long-term of persistent memory among these assistants in terms of adding value to your life.
Yeah, I guess it's amazing. I mean, let's step back a moment.
Exactly.
I mean, it is truly amazing that this robot is interacting with you and can come close to having a intelligent conversation. I mean, that is truly amazing.
Here's the thing that really struck me. There were two things. Number one, I did not set up with Copilot exactly what we were doing. I started to do that. In fact, I started to try and feed it links like, hey, here's the stories I want to talk about. And I just couldn't quite get that to work. There's two interfaces. There's kind of the text-based interface on Copilot and then the audio interface where you can do what I was doing.
So you didn't feed it any of our past podcasts?
Nope.
And you didn't feed it what was the prompt to start this?
The prompt was exactly as you heard it. I started talking.
Okay, so it had no background information on what the GeekWire podcast was, what you wanted to talk about?
Nope.
Oh, interesting.
That to me was the most impressive thing. And you heard, I sort of left that in at the beginning where I started to talk and it interrupted me as if we were having a normal conversation. And I said, hey, Copilot, wait, I'm going to bring you in. And then I did the podcast intro. And it was as if the Copilot understood to me
the change in dynamics of the conversation.
Yeah, this Copilot was now joining me as a guest on a podcast, and maybe
could you have set it up like that? For is there a way to prompt and say, "Hey, here are a couple links to past podcasts. We're doing this as a podcast episode about technology."
Possibly,
that would have been interesting.
Explore it that far,
Yeah.
and there is a feature in Google's Notebook LM that's really interesting, and it was part of the inspiration for me to do this. Mark Briggs, who's a friend of the show and somebody that we've worked with in the past, he's a executive coach and longtime media consultant. He was showing me how he used Notebook LM to create an automated podcast based on his corpus of information on a research project that he's been working on, a bigger project that he's been working on. And he pressed the button, and you press a button in Notebook LM, and it creates a conversation between two AI bots that sounds like an episode of NPR's Planet Money. I mean, it is off the charts
You
amazing.
could imagine, and this is totally possible, to have it be in your own voice. Like, could you put one in, like, here's all the material, here's my background, here's all the material I've written on this topic. Just have a conversation with this robot, and then we'll push a podcast out on it.
You could totally do that. You know, you and I tried that a little bit, I think it was last year or maybe earlier this year with some of our robotic synthetic voices. The technology wasn't quite there yet, but you could totally see where that could happen.
I love all this experimentation you're doing with audio and the podcast. I think it's really interesting.
So that was one of the things that really struck me, was how it jumped in right away and kind of seemed to get that it was a guest on the podcast just from the context of how I was setting it up.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I got to say, I thought you came across as a little high-minded and a bit of a snobby journalist. At times I felt bad for the Copilot.
You know, it was funny because I didn't quite know how to interact with it. I was thinking of the audience listening to it and also the Copilot responding. It was weird, although I will tell you, it's almost like a therapy session where it isn't so much what the therapist says, it's how the therapist draws something out of you. It felt a little bit like that, where I was actually getting to places in some of the comments that I made, even like my offhanded remark about my new remarkable tablet. Like,
yeah, the Paper Pro. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen what would have happened if you would have gone down the path on that. Like, just throw a total curveball, because you know that happens on the podcast
Yes.
and the show. It's like we start going down the path of another topic, and we can adjust and adapt. And I would have loved to have seen what would have happened in the case of the Copilot.
I think it would have gone there with me.
Yeah,
it
I
seemed
think so,
very
too.
open. It was like, where are we going now? That was kind of the spirit of the entire interaction, which I liked. I do want to point out, I mean, this is not entirely novel. It's clearly an interesting move for Microsoft to try and get Copilot out of the enterprise realm and expand it into the consumer world. But I mean, you can do this effectively with the voice interaction mode on the mobile app of OpenAI's ChatGPT. I mean, that is one of the most interesting parts of ChatGPT for me, is having a conversation back and forth with it.
So how does this look, this daily news briefing they're providing? Like, do you fire up your laptop and how does it push it to you? How do you customize it for yourself?
So it's based on a set number of news sources from different publishers, USA Today Network and a few others, that feed this information.
Hearst and
Yes.
Reuters, perhaps?
Yes, it's mobile based. And I'll be honest with you, the last time I checked on my Android phone, I had not gotten the new Copilot app that enables the daily briefing. So I have not actually tried that part of it
Well, let's
yet.
do that in a future episode.
I think
and
so.
And then let's come back to it and do an analysis on whether that is a worthwhile news product for you.
Absolutely. And I think that could actually be a story as well for us in terms of a hands-on review of a new AI experience.
So at the very end of the conversation, the Copilot said, you said there was an alert that said we're running out of time. And I was curious, do you have a set amount of time you can use it? And does that tie into, there's just so much compute power on this? I'm just curious what happened there.
I am on the free version of Copilot. Okay. I tried Copilot
because
Pro
I know you
for
have
a while.
about 70 other AI subscriptions.
I've really done a good job of doing trials and canceling the ones that I don't. So I've used a lot of Claude Pro and Copilot Pro for a while, and I've canceled them when they don't work. People are real big fans of Anthropic Claude. I know that it's got a lot of value for folks, but I have not found the value there from it.
So the time limit was simply because you're on the free version?
I believe so, yes. And I need to look into exactly how long the time is. My guess is 20 or 30 minutes because I tried it out a little bit beforehand to see what it would be like.
Yeah, and that ran about 10 minutes. And
yes.
Then, okay.
A couple other 5-10 minute attempts.
Right. Do you know how much it costs to
It's $20 a month for Copilot Pro. And I don't know.
And this is just a new feature of that?
Of Copilot, yes.
Yeah. So this is not an add-on. There's not an add-on fee for these new features.
No, exactly. So you can use the audio feature of Copilot in the free version, and then I believe you might get more audio. And boy, hey, scold me. This is conjecture on my part. I need to do my research. I have not yet looked into this. I will look into this.
That's not what this is about, Todd.
We're
not
who we are.
Fact-based journalism. That's not who we are.
Now,
that was a little high-minded.
I'm sorry. Was that snotty?
It was a little snotty.
See, but
it
that's
was funny.
The thing. Here's the advantage. You, as somebody who knows me, feel comfortable saying, hey, you were out of line there, and the Copilot wouldn't really do that, at least not in its current form, and maybe that could be a feature.
Well, it didn't want to upset you because it wants to convert you from the free version to the $20 a month version.
But just to get back to the point, I feel like it was interesting to me because it wasn't so much about what the Copilot was doing, it was what the Copilot was drawing out of me. And I felt like there was some value there. And I'm really just fascinated. I know everybody talks about the movie Her, and that has all sorts of weird connotations. But if you could take away the dating element of it and just have this thing there as a sounding board to help you get to places that you might not otherwise get, or think about things that you might not otherwise think about.
Like a Copilot.
Like a Copilot. Well, and without just boring the crap out of everybody around you in your life with the minutia of the things you're dealing with. Trust me, like I see the value in that because I understand that I do that to everybody around me. Maybe I should just start venting to Copilot every day.
Yeah.
And my relationships with the humans in my life would just be that much better for the lack of detail that they have about every trivial challenge that I face in my life.
This is getting very deep and psychological. And
it sounds great to you.
Yeah, maybe give it a try. I'll try anything at this point.
All right. So thanks for sitting down, and just take comfort in the fact that you're not.
I'm invited back.
You're invited back. You have not been, neither you nor Taylor has been replaced.
Thank you.
Yet.
Okay.
All right. That is the GeekWire podcast for this week. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, I'm Todd Bishop.
And I'm John Cook.
We'll be back soon with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast.